recording. Welcome to day 4 of our Foundations of Reconstruction for people who are transitioning out of their religion. For most of us here in the Empower Former LDS group, we're transitioning out of the LDS church. And transitioning might be, you left 6 months ago, or you left 32 years. Some of you have left over 32 years ago, and you're still finding connection with the Mormon community and looking for healthy ways to move on. And so that's why I created this workshop. This workshop is, let me recap a little bit of the things that we've been doing in this workshop so that you know. Day 1 was rebuilding your authentic identity. So I only have an hour to work through all of this. When I do my coaching and training, we get to go deeper into the principles and really do the homework and the inner work so that we can rebuild that identity. I was just talking with Susie, who is one of the people participating in our call today, and she was kind of identifying something that is very common, and that is when we leave the church, usually other things start to collapse too, because everything in our life has been so enmeshed in the church and the doctrine. Every choice that we've made has been, based on the indoctrination that we've received since we were little. Many of us were born into the covenant thinking that was a special thing, but now that we're out, we're thinking, okay, born into the covenant means I don't know myself beyond the church because I've never lived outside of it. And so it actually means we have some extra work to do. And so rebuilding that authentic identity, the 3 things in that one is to discover what your hierarchy of values is and to become very clear about what your values are, because your values are going to now become the guidepost or the measuring stick as to whether or not you're participating in things and relationships and in activities and in groups and in institutions and endeavors that align with your values. And the second thing was to trust yourself. I know once we leave, we can look back at ourselves and say, I was so stupid. How come I couldn't see that? How come I can't trust myself? And so your intuition takes a deep dive, and it has to have a reset to rebuild that intuition. And sometimes we don't know what it feels like to have that raw, deep connection with our intuition because it was always dictated by the rules of the Holy Ghost and all of the gentle, fragile things that would happen for us to lose the spirit and not have access to our intuition. And that was just a blatant, insidious lie. We've always have connection to that intuition, and it has nothing to do with our worth and everything to do with a skill that we learn to tap into that intuition, be able to know ourselves, to trust ourselves, and to be able to operate from our intuition being that locus of control, becoming the sovereign authority of our life and not being dependent on all these external voices and all these external authorities that we've given over to other people. And then the third thing in reclaiming your identity is having a sense of purpose and having a goal in your life, understanding what your gifts are, understanding what your love is, your passion is, what brings you joy, what brings you pleasure, and knowing what you want. And for some people who have left the church, for a lot of people, especially women, I find out is they don't know what they want because we just wanted what the Lord wants, and what the Lord wants was dictated to us by the church. And so this, what do you want, seems like a simple question, but it really, it's something we have to dig deep to really know what it is we want and who we are and what we represent and how we want to operate in the world going forward, being the sovereign authority in our life. So that was day 1. Day 2 was handling our TBM family members and little strategies on creating boundaries and understanding that each boundary needs a consequence and that our family members are going to challenge those boundaries. And one thing about boundaries I didn't mention is the people who do not like your boundaries are the people who are benefiting from you not having any. So those boundaries are an essential part to help people know how to play in your world and to help know that you have a safety net for when people rub you or cross those boundaries and make you feel a certain way or cause your own well-being to be interrupted in an unhealthy way, that you have a boundary set for yourself and that the people around you know that boundary, and the people who want to play in your world will honor those boundaries. People who do not have any boundaries usually are frustrated by other people creating boundaries. People who have good, strong boundaries, when they see somebody else who is creating a boundary, they're like, good for you, girl. They're like, good job. I'm so proud of you. They're not threatened by boundaries. And so those boundaries are important in handling your TBM family members. Also, recognizing again the external validation that we seek and over functioning in being responsible for the emotions that people have when we leave. And understanding that we're not responsible for people's emotions, that we can have compassion and empathy for how they feel, but we're not responsible for their emotions, and other people aren't responsible for our emotions. We're going to talk a little bit more about emotions today as the theme, but that external validation can really be the measuring stick, that the false measuring stick that we use to create value in our life, that the value that we have given ourselves is determined by these external voices that give us that value. And our goal is to switch that value to have it come from within. And so you're the one at the faucet. You're turning the volume up on the value and the acceptance and the expression and the love. You're there at the hose, and you get to dictate how much love and acceptance and validation you receive, rather than depending on some external source to give that to you. And then the other thing in handling your TBM family relationships has to do with your relationship with yourself and the internal dialogue that you entertain every day, and becoming very aware of your thoughts and aware of the conversation that you're having with yourself. That ability to split your mind into becoming the observer of your mind is an upgraded skill for evolving human beings. So that's called self-awareness. As we become more and more self-aware, we can observe our conversation that we have with ourselves. Then we can interrupt it and we can change it, and we can reparent ourselves, because we can look at those wounds and reparent ourselves, rather than allowing those wounds to completely infect our current relationship in the present life that we're having today. So that was day 2. Day 3, that we talked about mental health strategies. And this part is the mental health, and the emotions are the part that I absolutely love, understanding the matrix of the minds and how our thoughts are electric and our emotions are magnetic. And every thought that we have is a micro element into creating what's manifesting in our world. And the more we have the handle on the 60,000 thoughts that go through our mind a day, the more we can use those thoughts to create the world that we want. And a lot of times our mental health issues come from not knowing how to harness those thoughts, knowing how to observe those thoughts, and not knowing how to influence those thoughts in a positive way. So we talked about that, and then we also spoke about the importance of having a dream, having a goal. Where do I want to be 5 years from now? What is my great achievement that I want to accomplish in the world before I leave? Not having a dream doesn't give us any direction for our focus, our habits, our thoughts, our energy, our time, our resources. All of those things were given to the church in their agenda. So the big trick is now, how can we harness all of those things to start accomplishing the dream that we have in our heart? And again, that comes back to day 1 and knowing what it is you want. And that sometimes becomes the big challenge, is what do you want? And allow yourself to dream. How much money do I want to make? Where do I want to visit in the world? What do I want to experience? How do I want to operate in the world? How do I want other people to feel about me and when they're with me? Not what they think about me, that's different, but how do I want them to feel when they're in my presence? For me, I want them to feel safe. I want them to feel safe to be themselves and to communicate in ways that they're not going to be judged by me. So that's part of my dream anyway. So having that dream is important for your mental health. And then also being able to process your emotions. And that's what we're going to go in today, is that coping specifically with anger and grief, because anger and grief are the main things that we really struggle with when we have our religious paradigm collapse. And so coping with the anger and grief, let's just go right into that. Before I go into that though, does anybody have a question? I have some people on the live. I'm checking your comments. Hold on here. But is there anybody, like I have David and Christine and Susan on today. Is there any questions you had on the recap and what we've been going through this week? If not, we'll just get going. If you need the workbook and you're just watching this for the first time and you would like the workbook for this course so that you can do the inner work, go ahead and just put in the comments below hashtag workbook so I can get you the workbook, and I could also send you all the other sessions that we've been doing this week so that you can watch them in your own time or rewatch them and go through it slowly if you want to go through it slowly and listen to it over and over again, so you can have that, get that recap as well. So let's get started with coping with anger and grief. My expertise is in emotional wellness and processing your emotions. And I started into this field in the healing arts doing rapid eye technology. Rapid eye technology is very similar and came on board at the same time that EMDR came on. So they both honor this idea that if we do certain signals that access different parts of the brain, that we're able to process trauma and we're able to pull up recollective memories and recordings in our genetic programming, that we can bring it to the surface for reevaluation and reframing. And so that has been the thing that I've been working on for about 17 years now. That is my forte, and that is why I wrote the book, The Healing Questions Guide. The Healing Questions Guide is a tool that I developed for people to be able to troubleshoot their own emotions and their own feelings using whatever's manifesting in your body. So what's going on in your body is usually mostly a result of what's been going on in your mind. And so a mind that is kind of kinked or bent in directions that are not in harmony with who you really are, and that is blocking your ability to move and become your true self in anything that you're pursuing. If you feel those blocks, that's usually because you have a trauma response and there's something that's entangled in your genetic makeup and in your memories and in your subconscious that is ready for healing. And so the Healing Questions Guide is a tool to use your body to process emotions. I'm not going to go into that because that's not the point of this conversation I want to have today. I just want to let you know that this is my forte. This is what I love. This is what this is my passion, is to be able to heal childhood trauma and to heal trauma in the body and to be able to remove the blocks that aren't allowing you to move forward. And in that effort, what I've noticed is it's very difficult for me as a facilitator, been doing this for years and years, to be able to see and troubleshoot my own shadows, my own situations where I can't really see it. That's why there's an importance for a facilitator or a coach or a therapist, because they can see those blocks that we can't see. They're invisible to us. Of course, if they weren't invisible to us, we wouldn't have the block, right? And so even, after doing this for 17 years, I still engage a coach. And the reason I engage a coach is because they can see what I can't. And I engage a coach that is already at a point in their life or pursuing a specific thing in their life that they've had success in that I haven't yet been able to achieve. And so in this space, isn't it a gorgeous matrix where there's always somebody a couple steps ahead of us that can help us? And that's a beautiful thing. It used to be an intimidating thing to me because I used to think, well, that means I'm deficient some way. But now I crave to have a coach to help me see what I cannot see. And the book, The Healing Questions, let me grab a copy here right fast. I usually have it with me. Now it looks like my scripture's all bent, all beat up and notes everywhere. But it is a tool to be able to process your emotions and see some of those shadows too. So that we can get a hold of our emotions. It's only been the past 20, maybe 30 years that we've seen the value of processing our emotions, and we're finding simple strategies to be able to process those emotions so that we can operate better in the world. Our parents weren't taught these things. My parents were emotionally immature. And it's no fault of their own. It was never exposed to them how to manage their own emotions. Now, what I love to see, I get emotional with this because I have a daughter who has a 2-year-old, and her 2-year-old is an 8 on the Enneagram. If you know anything about the Enneagram, an 8 is the challenger, and she's aggressive, and she has come here to make her mark on the world. She is a powerhouse. I am totally in love with this kid, but she is a challenger. And I watch my daughter work with her and feel her emotions, let her feel her emotions and identify her emotions and give her permission to feel those emotions, not to resist them or ignore them or avoid them or become overwhelmed with them and tell her to stop crying. She lets her work through them. And I thought, oh, there's the difference. The effort that I've made to get a hold of my emotions and master them. Here I am crying telling you this, but my effort that I've made to master them has now been an inheritance that I can give my daughter. And now I'm seeing grand work with a 2-year-old that knows how to manage her emotions. You know, empathy and emotional maturity is what this world lacks right now. That and ability to do critical thinking. So that emotional piece is essential. And if it's something that you haven't learned, it's just a skill you've never been exposed to. And this might be your opportunity. If you feel like I'm a fit to help you work through your emotions, I would love to help you with that. But if I'm not, please find ways, books, strategies, mentors to help you manage your emotions. So what else did I have here? Oh, another thing that I use that's really important is self-inquiry, is asking yourself questions. Now, it might be weird to ask yourself questions, but when you ask elegant questions to yourself, that means complex questions, questions that you don't know the answer to, but you ask yourself as if your higher self does know the answer to it. That's when you start opening up a channel, a really strong, vibrant channel between your higher self and your conditioned self. And so I don't know, that might be a little bit scary for people who are not ready to onboard another spiritual program because of the trauma they've experienced in the Mormon church and their spiritual abuse that happened in the church. But consider that there's a higher self that understands. There's something intuitive that's going on in your life that knows how to operate in some divine order. And that higher self knows the answers. It's the self that's warning you. It's the true, raw, authentic, innate Holy Ghost that we were all given to guide us, to direct us, to protect us. And the stronger that connection becomes, the better we can operate in alignment with our true potential and our true intention for coming and experiencing earth life in this dimension. So that self-inquiry that's what the whole healing questions is about. These are questions that only you can answer, and we're going to talk more about self-inquiry as we process the emotion of anger in just a minute here. That and now there comes a point in your life where you have a breakthrough. And that is when you become vitally interested in how your inner world operates. Knowing at that point that your inner world is responsible for creating all what's going on in your outer world. And this is called the law of hermetics. But when we understand that the emotions, the beliefs, and the thoughts that are running through our whole system, I go like this, but it's really our mind, body, it's our whole system. When we understand how that is operating and how it's contributing to what's going on in our life presently, then we become empowered. We are the ones can go in and adjust it. And even a micro adjustment is going to send out an entirely different trajectory for your future. And that vital interest is becoming that self-awareness, becoming those two minds, the one that's operating in the world that we always, our conditioned self, and that higher self that's able to operate or to be able to look and say, okay, why am I thinking that way? Why am I behaving this way? What is it I'm really seeking? What is it I really want? And again, we're going to go more into that as we talk about being able to cope with anger. As we go through this, I also wanted to put a little disclaimer out like I did yesterday, and that is if you need psychotherapy and you need medication to help you during this time, there's no dishonor in that. However, if you just take the medication and fail to do your inner work, you're not going to have the results that you want. We are not designed to be on medications to alter our thinking for the rest of our life. At some point, when you become vitally interested in how you think and how you operate and the traumas, unprocessed traumas that have happened in your life, that's when you start to see true, profound results in every aspect of your life. And you feel empowered because when you see something chaotic going in the world out there, you can observe how it's going on in here and you can make the adjustments. So you're in control of your thoughts, your emotions, and your experiences. So some of the processes that I used, in case you're wondering, the techniques that I'm trained in: rapid eye technology, which is a lot like EMDR, and single situation processing, where you've had a traumatic event and being able to process through that, reframing the memories and reframing the meaning so that it's no longer being that drain or that trauma in your system. Also, The Work by Byron Katie. Oh, I love that work. The Work. If you haven't read the book Loving What Is by Byron Katie, that is a game changer. She's a gorgeous woman, gorgeous in that she exudes beauty and wisdom, and someone who seems to be very empowered in her life. So The Work by Byron Katie, or the book Loving What Is. And then the other process I use is emotional freedom technique. And that is where you tap on different places of the body that are connected to different organs, and you open an energetic pathway while you're processing emotion, and you're able to process the trapped emotion rather than keeping it stuck in your body. So before we talk about emotions, which I'm going to go into right now with specifically with anger, I wanted to say that it's not the emotion itself that makes us sick. It's not the emotion itself that makes us troubled, anxious. It is the resistance to those emotions. Our resistance to feeling and experiencing those emotions that create sickness in the body. And here's where the trouble lies. In the church, we are taught that our emotions are not our own. We are taught that all the good emotions come from God and from Jesus and from, all the good things from the prophets. They help us create these wonderful, lovely, good feeling, calm, peaceful emotions. And all the bad and negative emotions that we have come from the adversary: conflict, anger, sadness, grief. It's almost like if you go to a LDS funeral, you're not allowed to experience the full grief of the loss of a person, because everything's okay. They're in a better place. You're not supposed to feel those emotions. That doesn't. These are the things that I was taught growing up. Now, I believe the present church right now is becoming aware that process isn't going to work anymore, and that we have to handle it a different way. But as I was growing up, I was taught, you don't need to be angry long, because that'll create contention, and those feelings come from the devil. Well, the truth of the matter is your emotions are your emotions, and they're there to inform you. Your emotions do not dictate the truth. We were taught, read the Book of Mormon and take the challenge in Moroni 10, and you're going to feel something. That's called suggestology, by the way. But that feeling that you have is going to be a witness of the truth. That is not how we come about truth. That is probably the weakest way we can come about truth. I'm not saying that we don't have emotions and feelings when we witness truth, but having a feeling about something doesn't witness that the entire Book of Mormon was true, and that Joseph Smith must be a prophet, and everything that the church is teaching you is now being downloaded that minute that you have a feeling that something is resonating with you. And so our feelings and emotions have really been twisted and convoluted and mismanaged and misdirected in our experience in the church. When we get up to bear our testimony, and we almost feel like if we add a little bit of emotion to it, that it will give more meaning to it. So we're manipulated that way. There's just so many countless ways our experience in the church has been manipulated. Our emotions have been manipulated. So the first thing I want to invite you to do is to say, these are all mine. I get to have negative emotions. I get to have positive emotions. All the emotions are mine. And my emotions are here to inform me of how I'm feeling about the presenting situations. And that those dark and scary emotions that we resist are usually pockets of trauma that need to be processed. That's an important piece. I'm going to sit here for a minute and look at what my notes are before I go into processing anger. Yes, thank you for posting that, Christine. Loving What Is by Byron Katie. Changed Jen's life. Very good. The Body Keeps the Score. Yes, that's an awesome book too. That's actually one of the resources I used for the Healing Questions Guide. The Healing Questions Guide that I created, the reason I created it is because it asks questions to unlock the beliefs. And asking questions kind of bypasses that ego, the conditioned mind, and it interrupts the negative neural pathway, the negative belief, if you will. And then it opens up a dialogue between you and your higher self using a question you didn't think to ask because you didn't know it had something to do with your body, what's going on in your body. Your body is like an electromagnetic instrument, and it's got a circuitry. It's like a complete circuit board. And when the circuitry is misaligned, then we have not a surge, but like a downgrading surge on our energetic patterns and in our ability to experience our full energy, if you will. And that's when you go into the detail with the chakras and the meridians and all of that stuff. And we don't learn about our energy system in the schools here in the West anyway. We definitely do in the East. They learn about that stuff all the time, but we kind of did not learn about that in school. We learned about muscular system and our nervous system and our digestive system and our endocrine system, but we never learn anything about our energetic system, which quite frankly, I think is the most important system. So does anybody else have any questions before I go into processing anger? Check in my Facebook here. All right. So it's not that you shouldn't be angry. It's that you don't know how to be angry because nobody taught you how to be angry. And this is the thing that my daughter is teaching my little 2-year-old granddaughter. You get to be angry. Angry is okay, but we need to sit there and look and say, what am I angry about? And she uses, and well, I've watched her use this. I don't know that she does it consciously, but she uses this pattern I'm going to tell you right now. And that is the stop. Stop is a acronym for stop. That means stop thinking in that pattern. First, you've got to stop it, interrupt it, if you will. The second, the T, stands for take a step back. That means stop moving forward into whatever you're experiencing, the event, the person, the conversation, whatever, and step back a minute. Otherwise, you're going to go into your conditioned or traumatic pattern if you keep moving forward into the conversation or into the issue, to whatever is making you angry. The third one, the O, is observe the trigger. What am I feeling? This is where we practice the elegant inquiry. You're asking your higher self, what am I feeling right now? You might say, well, I'm angry. Well, angry is a very broad feeling or term to identify multiple feelings that we're having. And so if you ask further, I'm angry at what? What am I angry about? We're going to talk more about that after I go through this acronym. But we observe the trigger and start asking the questions, what's going on here? And the fourth one with the P is the proceed mindfully. And what that means, proceed mindfully, it means don't proceed in your trauma. Don't proceed unconsciously. And what we have to do during that time is we've got to get it out of the body. We need to process the anger Sometimes what that means in a conversation that's getting escalated is I need to step away and I need to get regrounded. And I need to think about this for a minute before I continue communicating, because otherwise we're going to say some pretty nasty things that are hard to clean up afterwards if it's not something we really meant, something we meant, or something we said in the heat of the moment. So that STOP acronym: stop, take a step back, observe the trigger, and proceed mindfully. Another way to get it out of your body is to move your body, and that means to either dance, jump up and down, shake, go for a run. Your body is responding to an emotion, and that emotion needs to get out. Otherwise, it gets really condensed inside your body and it'll pocket into your heart or into your arteries or into your tissues somewhere if it doesn't have somewhere to go. So get it out of your body, just shake it out. Go yell and scream. In your car is a good place to yell and scream, but in a pillow, get the anger out there. And then the third one is to ask. These are the inquiries, the questions to ask. What hurt or fear is this anger protecting me from? What hurt or fear is this anger protecting me from? Let's make that question even more simple. What am I trying to protect by being angry? A lot of times we get angry because we have some superimposed rule in our mind that we think cannot be broken. For example, let's say that you get to the train stop and you're going to be late, but the train is late. So now you just start getting angry because somewhere you have this rule in your mind that all trains need to be on time every single time. And so now you're angry that the train broke that rule. Other rules that happen to do with family members is that I should be loyal and give my family members rights to me and my time without any boundaries, or my family is going to love me no matter what. And then when you tell them the truth about you no longer believing, you recognize, oh, well, that only went so far. And so we get angry. We might be angry about the idea that our church leaders are only supposed to give us the truth. And then when we find out they don't, well, we get angry because that was some internal rule that we had. And now we're discovering something different, something true. Sometimes the truth can make us angry. So what rule do I feel has been violated? That is an important mystery piece into understanding your anger. And if you find, after asking these questions, what am I trying to protect? You find that I'm trying to protect my pride. I'm trying to protect my material wealth or my power and position and prestige. That's you trying to protect your ego. So when people rub you wrong and it's really just hurting your ego, that is just an immature response to some external feedback. And that means you have some internal work to do to be able to identify an undeveloped ego. But if ask the question, what am I really trying to protect? And it has to do with an injustice. It has to do with a relationship that's valuable to you, something that is really tender and intrinsic to your health and well-being. Then that anger can be used as a catalyst for change. And that in that space, the anger is vital. It's important. And you can see how if you just shove that anger down without inquiring about it, then you don't know how to process this injustice that you're feeling is happening to you. I'm going to give you a good example that's present, that's happening right now. I don't know why it is, but when I try to do some course or class or whatever, the church gives me a fabulous backdrop to use for them. And this week, unfortunately, it's Elder Holland's talk that he gave at the BYU commencement. And this one is hurting a lot of people, and it's specifically directed at the LGBTQ community. And it bothers me. It's still bothering me. I'm still trying to process it myself. But let's take that one. We listened to Elder Holland's talk. Now, if we're completely in the church, it doesn't really rub us wrong unless we're starting to ask questions and challenge the brethren. We find a way to make them right, even when our conscience feels wrong. And most of you are already past all that stage because you've already said the church isn't for me because you've witnessed that. But in that talk, it makes me angry, and I ask myself why. First of all, I'm going to stop. I felt my blood boiling, my neck getting hot, my whole body is going, I just want to wring his neck. If there's a close church building, I want to light it on fire. That's how I feel at the time. So I have to stop and say, okay, I'm getting worked up. Take a step back. What am I angry about? I'm angry because his words hurt people I love. Is that my ego? If his words make me look like a fool, that would be my ego. But when it's about relationships or people that I care about, when it's a moral thing, when it's a tender thing, then that anger is good. So it can become the catalyst to change. I don't like the way it impacts the LGBT community. It hurts my heart that they have to hear things like that. It's another example of harmful manipulation that was done to me when I was in the religion. These are things that I write down when I was angry. Also, I am disgusted with the arrogance and the ignorance, not knowing how this is going to impact a group of people that I have learned to grow and love. And I'll be honest, I have this sad spot in my heart because of how I treated them when I didn't know better. And that part I've had to forgive myself for. That was a important component in my healing and growing. So I don't feel that anymore, but it was something that I had to process. And I'm angry also because I know if I bring it up, I'm going to be shut down and gaslit from innocent members who don't know any better. And so I have to ask myself, what am I really angry about? What are the emotions coming up that I can identify that go beyond the anger? And that is the injustice. The injustice absolutely burns me up, and I'm afraid it's going to hurt more people. So I know that about my anger, and it's just not running rampant, unsupervised in my mind. Now I can use it. So what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do about this injustice that's happening, or the fear that it's going to hurt more people? That's when I ask that question. That's when your higher mind is going to kick into action. And it's going to give you some options and ideas. One of the things that I saw emerge even less than a day after Holland's talk was a group of teachers and authors and people in Sunstone who just made a video saying, we love you. There's a place in our religion for you. There's more than one way to Mormon. And I saw that kind of message as a catalyst. Now, when you're operating, using that anger for good, you can create things that make an impact. When you're using your anger unaware, that's when we hurt feelings, we burn bridges, we do things that don't help the actual movement that we want to see happen. And unfortunately, in a lot of ex-Mormon communities, we don't know how to process this anger. And we're just bitter, and we want the church to be responsible for the things that it's done to us, instead of processing the anger and using it as the catalyst to do something that will progress things forward. Or even to progress us forward. So what can I do about it? I can call one of my LGBTQ friends and let them know that I love them. I can just send a message out to them. I can post something to support them. I can express my love. These are just some of the things that I came up with as I asked myself the question. Had I not gone through this process, literally what I want to do is go burn a church down, because that will just somehow make me feel better. But the truth is, it won't ever make me feel better, and it doesn't solve anything. But me being able to express my feelings to those people who it might impact, the injustice that's being done to them, now it becomes a catalyst for good. People who respond in anger have little effect on resolving true issues. We live in a world that is dealing with unresolved anger. And it's like we cannot hold space for other ideas because we have not developed this very skill that I'm inviting you to. Does anybody else have any ideas about, even if your feelings about Holland's talk, or how you process anger, or something that you're angry about that maybe we can troubleshoot? I'm looking on my Facebook. I'm so mature. Oh, thank you, Jen. I'm learning. This has been quite a process for me. I don't have anything here on Zoom either. Okay. So that has to do with anger. And a recap with that: stop, take a step back, observe the trigger, and in that place, ask the questions, and then proceed mindfully. This is how we use anger to make change in our world. And that is what I had. Before I go on to grief, I did want to say that if there is something in your childhood, an injustice that you experienced in your childhood that was not processed, that anger gets trapped in our body. And things like cancer, diabetes, any autoimmune disease is really connected to self-contempt and anger. And so our efforts to process that in our body is going to make a huge difference on our life force energy, because it's no longer going to be leaking out in those places where the trauma is still present and going on in the body. I have one of my kids today call me up and say, "Mom, how do I let go the feeling or the way other people are making me feel?" And she had an experience with her employer, and she says, I need to quit. And the employer's upset at her and sad and angry. And she needed to quit for her reason and what works for her. But in processing that anger, she was learning how to let go of what other people think and not be over responsible for their feelings, and recognize that the trigger that she was experiencing was likely something that happened to her in childhood, where she disappointed either her or my dad or a grandparent or somebody that she loved. She disappointed them, and the contempt that she developed against herself was so intense that when it happened with her employer, it's like it reignited it all over again. So this thing that I'm telling you right now is why it's not healthy to stay so connected in unhealthy ex-Mormon situations, because you are rewounding yourself. You are igniting trigger after trigger after trigger, thinking that eventually at some point, this is all going to fade off and go away. It's not going to go away if we keep re-triggering ourselves and if we haven't healed the core issues. That's the important piece right there. Okay, now we're going to go on to grief. Just making sure I'm not missing anybody's comments here. Yes. Teresa, I would love to talk to you about the things that you're dealing with. We can do a one-on-one chat. I think we're lined up to do that. Teresa is actually really cool in that she's helping me find a location in St. George for anybody who would like to do a live workshop with me. We're going to spend a whole day. I believe the day we have scheduled to set aside is September 18th, and that's a Saturday. So if you would like to come and join us on that Saturday, I'm going to put more information in the group about that event, and we can do some live interaction, live processing. So the sense of grief. Grief is loss. Loss, we've lost a lot. And it's not just the church that we lose. Many times it's our job. For me, it was my whole healing practice collapsed because we're all LDS women. My marriage collapsed once we no longer had the structure of the church in our marriage. And so here you are at this place where everything is getting scrubbed out to the bare bones. And that's a lot of loss. And what's interesting about this grief is that if you were to lose a child, people would rally around you and they would just be in this space of, what can we do for you? When you get when you have a divorce, people understand divorce is pretty traumatic. They're going to support you the best that they can. If you lose a job or your house catches on fire or you get in an accident or you get a terrible disease, you're going to have a support system there for you. But that support system, if it's made up of people in the church, that support system is not going to be anywhere around when you're experiencing the most tremendous grief you have ever experienced in your life, because they don't understand what's going on with you. And this is why it's important to get associated with a support group, a therapist, a coach, a trainer, somebody who understands what you're going through so that you can process this. Unfortunately, in the church, we are just taught to pray more and get to the temple and be more obedient, and all those things will go away. That is called spiritual bypassing. That is not an effective strategy. This grief is intense, and we don't know how to manage it, and we're not used to onboarding a therapist. We're not used to getting a coach to help us through it. We're just used, to praying harder and giving more fast offerings, something, trying to be able to manipulate the Lord's attention on us so that we can have this peace. But grief is an important part of our experience as human beings. And we only experience grief to the extent that we have loved. And grief is complex. In my book, A Peculiar Transition, Healing the Trauma of Mormon Faith Crisis, I talk a lot about grief, and we go through Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, I think is her name, and her stages, the 5 stages of grief. And those are important pieces, and people are adding to that, and you become there's more variables to experiencing that grief. But that feeling of grief comes because we feel out of control to handle situations that used to create stability and familiarity in our life. When those things collapse, whether it's a relationship, a loved one, anything that you've been giving a lot of love to, a lot of energy to, a lot of attention to, and then it's gone. That is tremendous loss, because what are we going to do with all the love that was directed in that area? What do we do with it now? And so that grief is put in, that love is kept inside of us, and it's not going there anymore, and it creates grief. So grief is actually trapped love that we're not able to give to a source that we used to be able to give it to. So let's think about some of the things that we grieve when we leave the church. We're grieving friendships. We're grieving habits, stability. We've created a life where we've instilled all the habits the church wanted us to instill. And now when the church collapses, those habits, they're up for reconciliation, or we're going to restructure them and recalibrate them in our life. We are grieving, maybe the relationship with the spouse is going to be hurt. We're grieving, sorry, my phone just died on me. We're grieving familiarity. We're grieving, I can't pull it up. I will do that in a minute. Let's see, what else are we grieving? We're grieving our identity. We're grieving our God, our idea of God and the universe. We're grieving that stability and that familiarity in our life that gave us the sense of trust. And that's a lot of grief. And we're grieving that we don't have anybody to help us through it. And the people that have always been there for us, now they're just abandoning us. And it creates like another layer of grief, because now we don't have anybody we're grieving people that used to help us grieve. And so it becomes more complex. And so again, that grief is feeling out of control for losing stability and familiarity. Grieving also comes in the form of regret of all the things we could have done had we not been, under the influence of indoctrination. That regret comes from things that we said and did to people when we were in the religion, like I was talking about, not understanding LGBTQ issues and what it feels like to be in their body and in their life, say stupid and dumb and insensitive things. I have a lot of regret for that, or I had a lot of regret for that. We have remorse for things that could have been, remorse that I didn't pursue that dance scholarship, remorse that I didn't pursue any kind of career when I was a mom, a remorse of some of the decisions that I made and the dysfunction that I was willing to live in because of the teachings of the church. And so that's more layers of grief. And this grief requires us to have compassion for ourselves and to turn inward and to be patient and to continue that elegant inquiry and asking yourself, what do you need? And you becoming the source of fulfilling your own needs. That means you're going to be parenting yourself. That means you have a little one that's wounded and afraid that her familiar world has just collapsed. Or that little guy is in there saying, I don't know what's next. I don't know how to do life without the structure that's just been taken away from me. And so it's being able to approach that inner child with compassion and asking, what do you need? Do you need support right now? Let's go find you somebody who understands what you're going through. Let's go share your story with somebody who's going to listen. What else do you need? Oh, I need to get away. I need to read a book. I need to dance more. I need to be heard. I need to be, that's that little child in there trying to be able to offer that love that was given freely in this avenue that the church provided, that's all trapped inside. And so when you ask yourself, what do you need right now? And go do that thing for yourself. That's an important piece. You, if you're like me, you gave the church 100% of yourself. I was bound and determined to qualify for the celestial kingdom, and I was going to be damned if I wasn't going to bring everybody with me, which is an impossible feat. But I was going to make sure that I never misstepped in a way that would cause someone else to stumble. That's how dedicated I was to living the teachings of the LDS religion. And so that betrayed me, and that betrayal is intense, but it's also the most gorgeous point in my life because it's forced me to go inward and to identify who I am and to build trust with this person right here, to understand her character, to honor her weaknesses, to give her support when she needs it, to find the help that she needs when she's coming across things that are too complex for her, that she doesn't understand and she needs help with. That caused me to go inward. And I talked about in one of the classes before, where all of our energy is projected onto that power board of the church. And when the church collapses, you have all of this validation that the church has been giving to you. And where do we ground it? You ground it within. You become the renewable, sustainable source of love and validation and acceptance and approval. And when you become that person, the outer external chatter that's going on no longer affects you and dictates your life because you've become your own person. And that would never happen had I not experienced the betrayal at such a cataclysmic extent of losing my religion. That is how I feel. So the thing is that I trusted the narrative, and so did you. And I ordered my life accordingly. And by golly, it's just easier that way. I'll be honest with you, living in the church was a lot easier than trying to figure out my life and what it is I want and how to operate all on my own. But that is what's required of us as we are upgrading our subtle organs and our capacity to learn. We're evolving, we're growing. And in that space, we're going to experience grief before we experience relief, because we feel that betrayal. But let that betrayal be the catalyst for you discovering who you really are without the layers of indoctrination. And that grief, something I wanted to share with you that I wrote about my grief. And maybe this resonates with you or can be helpful for you. But this is how I turned my trauma into resilience. It wasn't until I discovered that I was being deceived by the source that I was conditioned to trust the most that I learned to trust the voice within. It wasn't until I lost my superficial community of church friends that I began seeking loyal, real, lasting, authentic relationships. It wasn't until I lost the identity that had been given to me through indoctrination that I discovered who I really am. Notice in the beginning of all of these, it wasn't until I lost something. It wasn't until I lost relevance with my family, my friends, my children, and my parents for leaving that I stopped trying to please them and stopped betraying myself. It wasn't until I lost my membership in the church that claims to be the one and only true church that I found deeper association with God and all of humanity. Evidently, I needed to be told what to think and what to believe in order to appreciate the privilege and the freedom of thinking for myself. And that trick is to transform your pain and your suffering into resilience and power. And that is what we're about right here in your life, right now. If you're listening to this, that is the work that you're engaging in. You're reclaiming yourself, your identity, and you're transforming that pain and suffering into resilience and strength and wisdom, because there are people behind you that need you to show up. They need the attention that you're giving this right now is going to give you the words to articulate how they can experience peace and growth faster than what you and I experienced, because these things that happen, we were ill prepared for them. There are very few therapists who understand the complexity of the Mormon indoctrination. They're not trained to do that. They might have an extra class that they take on cult dynamics, but they don't understand our religion. And so we're ill prepared to help us process all of this. But as you grow and you turn that pain and suffering into resilience, you are going to be the qualified one to help them understand what it is they're going through. And trust me when I say the outflux of members is not stopping or slowing down anytime soon. I don't believe that at all. You know what? I realize the earth feels like it's crumbling beneath you at the time that you lose your faith. I know that it's lonely. I know that it's scary. And sometimes you doubt that you're even making the right choice. I'm still reading my thing here. But after the life quake and digging to find yourself through all the rubble, you can rebirth yourself into a better version of you, an even better person because of your challenges than you ever could be had you never had those challenges. No one can convince me that I am a victim of the church, because all I see now is that I have been gifted. This is a gift, and it looks like a shitty gift at first. It does. But there is so much power that I want to be able to help you see, power that you have access to, power in you and who you are. And my job is to hold a space for you to see that in yourself. God, I didn't think I needed to get so emotional. I apologize, because we have been manipulated by people who cry on stage. So I hope you know that these tears that I'm having are genuine. I'm not trying to impress anything on you other than this. I'm so passionate about this. So for this gift that I've been given, I'm honestly and genuinely and abundantly grateful for it. I'm almost done here, but I was taught to be quiet when I had something to say that might not meet the approval of the authorities in my life. I will never again be silenced. I will not be censored, because what I have to say, it matters. What you have to say matters. And the fact that what you have to say and what I have to say is different, that also matters. But what matters most is that we are kind, that we are loving, and that we are growing. So that is my emotional battle. I don't like the word battle, adventure cry. And I invite you to start this healing process for yourself and to access those pools of resilience that are ready for you. You know what? We become a unique superpower in the world because of what we went through in our religion when we're able to heal it. And so in the next tomorrow, what I'm going to be doing is a question and answer. I really want to engage with you and help you with the things that you're dealing with specifically. So it's a Q&A, and if I don't have any response, I don't know why so many people are afraid to respond in here. Maybe because I don't want it recorded and it's emotional, and I get that. But if you have any questions, please present them to me. If you want them to be done anonymously, just private message me, and we'll bring it to the attention of the group, and you won't have to say who you are. But I'm also going to be talking about more strategies and charting your course. And I'm going to invite you to an online interaction with me for coaching for all of these things that I've been talking about. I hope you understand that I'm only scratching the surface. I have so much content and information that I would love to share with you so that you really can get the changes and the transformation that you're looking for in your life. This is an apex. You're at a very crucial moment in your life where it's going to change the whole trajectory of your life. And the best days are still ahead of you because you're onboarding new skills. And if it feels like a fit for you, I have a program that I'm doing. I'm doing the live coaching and personal coaching. And I've created a package, and I'm going to let you know what that is tomorrow, because I want to be able to share it in a way that feels authentic for you. If you want to know more about this, you want to set up a call for me, I'm going to leave my Calendly link in here so that you can set up just a personal coaching call, so I can see where you are, and how this course can help you, and kind of talk to you about, what are the steps that you're wanting to make in your life? Because it's more important to me that you're moving forward than anything else. That is my goal. That is how I've been uniquely designed to serve in the world. And so me not being able to serve in that capacity is not working for me anymore. And I have been way too quiet in our group, even though our group is freaking awesome. We have so many wise people in there. And so it's been just fine for me to let people lead in there and do things that they do. And I love the counsel that you give each other. So any questions about what I talked about today, what we covered today, anything that I can help you with before I sign off? Not sure where my live group went, but I'll have to answer those questions after we sign off. Anything from David or Teresa, Susan, Christine, anybody in the Zoom call?
Yes, there was one question about, hello, everybody. Anger. When anger feels so good, how do you unpack that? Because so Jen had made a comment, and I'm like, oh yes, there's times when like I'll be calm, and then there's that explosion, but afterwards, like I feel justified, and I'm like, yeah, and that anger just feels so dang good.
So again, if you act out, anger feels powerful. Think about anger is one of the highest oscillating frequencies that we experience, the emotions. The other ones are positive. They're gratitude and love and joy. All those things are high oscillating. The joy and gratitude are high vibrating. The anger is a lower vibration, but the lowest vibration is apathy. And so that's why sometimes I get really concerned about medications that keep us in an apathetic state, because now we're not able to use the full range of our emotions to be able to process what's going on in our life. But sometimes getting to that state and medication is what we need so we can figure all of this out. However, why does anger feel powerful? Well, for me, I was never allowed to express my anger. So it's like this energy in me that's able to explode. And right after, if I act in anger, I usually create chaos because my thoughts are toxic and I'm feeling just like I want to hurt something or hurt somebody. And immediately afterwards, that felt powerful because I used my power. But the outcome, that's how you're going to know whether it was useful. The outcome is not productive. it might create more anger, and it might incite more injustices. Or if we step back and use the stop process and use anger as a catalyst for change, then your higher self is the one informing you because you've asked the internal questions. Then you can take action, and then being able to actually address the injustice or address the relationship and find ways and strategies to make things better. Then that anger, that's true power, that's true empowerment. But I think a lot of times, we think about when you're a child and you get angry and your parents respond really fast. When you're an aggressive soul and you act out in anger when you don't get your way, and other people start going, okay, do whatever he says, just don't want to deal with his anger. Those give us a false sense of power within. I hope that was helpful. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. Anything else I can help with? Well, I'm going to sign off. Oh, thank you, Christine. I'm going to sign off now. If you are listening to this and you didn't get the workbook, or you want the recordings of the past classes that I've been teaching this week, and you want to get updates on tomorrow's class and future things that I'm going to be having, like the thing in St. George, or the coaching that I'm doing that's going to be starting September 14th. Just get connected with me, put hashtag workbook or hashtag I want to know more. And if you would like to set up an appointment, a strategy session with me, next week is going to I've scheduled that time to be completely open for people who are wondering if coaching is going to be a fit for them. And we're just going to talk and get you your next steps going. Whether or not you just choose to coach with me, that's completely up to you. I'm not a high pressure sales. We have been so emotionally manipulated in so many ways, not just in the church, that I do not use those strategies anymore. I refuse to use those strategies. And I've been taught to use them by many people in the entrepreneurial coaching world, that I just refuse to use it. So you're totally safe by just talking to me about what it is going on with you and how I can help you. So we will connect with you soon. And thank you for being part of Empowered Former LDS and the contributions that you make to this group. Signing off. Bye.